Cool.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Joaquin Fuentes. Thank you for tuning in our radio show. You're live with Joaquin and Billy. We're very happy to have you here with us. This afternoon we have a very talented the wonderful Harmini this afternoon. How are you, Harmini?
Man, I'm doing fantastic, my brother. I am sincerely doing very great, man. It's been an amazing year, and everything continues to just get better and better as time goes by.
Thank you for being here this afternoon.
I love being here, brother. This is home, man. You know that.
Thank you. We always love to have you here in our shows. Harmini, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood, where you're from, and how you became Christian, and how you became interested in becoming a singer as well as an actor?
Yeah, sure. I was born and raised in Elmira, New York, which is a small city up in the area of near the cities of Syracuse and Binghamton and Albany and Ithaca and those surrounding places. And I was raised in a single parent home. I was raised with my mom, and I had my brother that lived in the home with us, and his father was absent as well. And so, naturally not having our fathers there, it was very different growing up, because it's very different when you have two parents compared to one parent. And so females were never created to be a man. They were created to be a woman. And so male and female have different strengths and different weaknesses. And so my mom was, constantly stressed out because we were so just out of line and just crazy. And so at a young age, age 7, I had encountered a man that lived in the projects with us in the area where I was living in Riverview. And he had snatched me up after I came out of my friend's house, heading over to across the street to go home in the evening time. And that was a very radical situation for me. It changed everything about my life, how I viewed myself, everything. This man had taken me out back of the same building of the friend that I had, that I just walked out of his home. And he forced me onto the ground and began to molest me at 7 years old. And that caused a lot of things in my heart and in my mind to shift and to go into a direction of, self-condemnation, guilt, confusion, fear, and just many other negative emotions and things. And so, that was the first major thing that happened. And then by the time I hit 10 years old, I was already smoking marijuana, watching pornography, drinking, just a lot of stuff. Just at such a young age where, kids are supposed to be innocent and, pure for the most part and still growing and developing. But at age 10, I was already doing things that 30, 40-year-old, men and women, do. And so, it was just very difficult. And so my mom, she had a disease. It was an inherited disease called Tourette syndrome. And Tourette syndrome is basically involuntary movements of the body. The doctors refer to them, they classify them, title them as tics. They call them tics. Yes. And so those are movements that people cannot control. They just happen. And it is the result of an excess of energy in the brain, and the extra energy that hits the brain just kind of disperses into the body and just causes different things to happen. It can be a blinking of an eye involuntarily. It can be a facial movement. There's several things. You have a minor case of Tourette, and then you have a more severe case. My mom had the severe case. It was very difficult, and I inherited that from her. And so that was a huge part of my childhood growing up, and all the bullying, all that craziness, and then the drugs and everything. So it was just really crazy, man. But one thing that Harmony really loved, man, growing up was music. I was absolutely head over heels in love with the sound of harmony. Harmony in vocals, when a man or a woman or a quartet would harmonize together, it was just absolutely incredible to me. And so that's really the thing that inspired me to move in this direction, music.
You know, your story is very touching. It touched my heart because you say your mother was a single mother and was raising you with...
Yeah, on welfare too.
Yes, and you didn't have a father figure and you were molested.
Yep.
I bet this was a very horrific encounter with this man.
It was very difficult.
Yes.
I think even now, I mean, I'm 32 right now, and I don't think even I understand all the implications of not having a father in that moment in time when that guy had molested me. I think that there's things in my mind or even in the back realm of my heart that I don't even understand that causes me to think maybe the way that I do or act the way or even respond in certain situations. And it's just, it's a tragedy to see that. But the one thing that I'm grateful for, I would never wish anyone to not have a father. I would never wish molestation upon anyone. But the one thing that I can say is that there's a very strong chance that by me not having my dad there and perhaps going through some of the harder things that I went through as a child have caused me to be the person that I am today, as far as being a father to my son and being able to love my son, because I guess it's really a choice. Some people, if they don't have a father, they choose to just, abandon their kids or act, mean or violent even, in some cases toward their children. But for me, it was more, I wanted to give my son everything that I didn't have. Yes. And so because of that, and it was crazy because I didn't know how to be a dad. Before I came to Christ, before I became a Christian, I would have not been a good father. I was in drugs, I was in drinking, I was in all these crazy things, man, that was just very, very worldly, ungodly, and I was committing felonies, like 5 felonies every week. And so I would not have been a good father until the love of Christ came into my life when I was 22, and that one encounter with Christ spun a perpetual growth that has not ceased even to this very day. It just continues to grow in me and consume me, and it's caused me to be able to be that father to my son that my dad was not to me.
Nobody's really prepared to become a daddy or a mother because nobody really...
Who knows, man?
Prepared because it's changing her life, humanity, when you have a child. But like you say, become a Christian, it helps you to overcome all the obstacles that you live as a child, and that you endure this crazy encounter with this man that was molesting you.
Yeah.
How did you hear about the Word of God? How did you become a Christian? Because you say you did a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol, and you were watching porno and
all that stuff.
Age.
Well, it was kind of interesting because even though I lived in the projects and I saw the things that I saw, and people were breaking in our house and stealing our stuff. I remember one time we came home and there was people in our complex who literally pulled up a chair and were sitting in, they didn't even care. They were sitting in front of our house with our lock, and they had like tools trying to like hammer in to break open into our house as we're pulling up. Yes. They're just chilling, sitting there trying to break in our house publicly, openly, right? Yes. And I'm like, oh man, I remember my brother he was outside 10 years old, man, riding his bike, and some guy had been butchered. He'd been butchered by another guy who was from Rochester who had came down there over something stupid, and he's literally pulling himself on the ground, crawling up to my 10-year-old brother on his bike, bleeding from everywhere, begging my brother to please help him. It was just crazy, the stuff that we had went through. So I think that God knew that we needed some kind of influences as kids, and my grandmother was Catholic, and there was always a church bus that would come that would always, be like, hey, we'll give you some candy if you come to church. And I was like, heck yeah, man, I'll sick of Snickers bar, man. Tell me about Jesus all day long. And so I would take the bait of that candy, and I would go to church, and I don't think that I really understood the impact that those seeds were having on my life, because there was many times when I went and I'd stay for half of the service, and then I'd leave and go across the street and smoke weed and smoke cigarettes and then come back to get on the bus to go home. And it's kind of interesting, as I'm even bringing this up and talking about this, I'm beginning to remember memories that I haven't dug up in many years. Wow. So, yeah, those seeds took root in my heart, even though I didn't know that. And so, just like the Bible says, when seeds are sown, they get planted, God waters them. He sends people to water those seeds. And apparently the seeds that fell in my heart as a child growing up fell on good ground. I just didn't know it. And so, that really inspires me, as a minister, because I love kids so much, man. I love people. I love adults. Yes. I want people to be so blessed and so rich and full of just everything good in life, especially God and His presence. And I see so many terrible things happening in families, so many people that just are so lost, man. It's heartbreaking. And I'm like, man, I just want to help them. I want to help them. How do I help them? And at the end of the day, sometimes there's not much you can really do except for just try to be a light to them the best you can, and hope that what seeds you sow will eventually take root and grow.
That's a very powerful testimony. It's beautiful what you're saying, that you love children, you love people, and you always want to help whoever you can reach and help them out, because the life that you live, it was very hard.
It was.
And now, so I was reading in your biography that you were in jail.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Man, jail sucks. Don't go to jail, man. I went to jail, but even before that, even when I was, I think 10 or 11 was when I first started getting in like really big trouble, and running away from home, all kinds of craziness, man. And they put me on this thing called PINS, which is People in Need of Supervision. And it was a program, and so I'd have, people watching over me and blah, 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 and then they took me out of my home at one point, and they stuck me in this house. It was called a respite home. It was a place where kids who aren't able to really function in their home and causing trouble, they send them there in hopes that they will kind of get more of a structure of, enforcement and discipline. I didn't have much discipline at my house. My mom, she always was the one who wanted to just love you, and it was just very difficult for her to discipline, especially because I was so rebellious as well. But yeah, I went through respite home, then I went to these things called Glove House, and I went to those two different ones of those, the same type of thing. You're locked in a house, and if you run away, it's a felony. Then they locked me in a detention facility, and I was up in the middle of nowhere out in the woods, man. I thought Freddie was coming to get me. It was just crazy out there, man. And again, just 24/7 supervision. You have to get up at like 5 in the morning, and you're at your desk, and they teach you school down in the basement at like 5:30, and it's like, it was crazy, man. And again, you run away from there, it's a Class E felony. And so just, one thing after another. Finally, I got addicted to a crazy drug. It's actually a prescription drug called OxyContin. Yes. And that drug not only took thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars out of my life, it killed some of my friends. And I became so addicted to that thing. I remember my mom just crying for me because she saw me go through these withdrawals, man. I would consume that OxyContin. I would snort the heck out of that stuff. And when I was going through withdrawals in the dead middle of summer, like July, like now, where it's like 95 degrees, 100 degrees outside, I would be wrapped in several comforter blankets next to the heater that I begged my mom to put on like 90, and I was still freezing cold. So it was the OxyContin, the trouble I got in with that ended up leading me to a place called, it was an independent living. They were trying to like get me together, man. It was like my last stop before jail. And so I went there, and I still was addicted to Oxycontin, and there was someone in there, a girl who, you know, I was talking to, and she wanted to use it, and I let her have some of mine, and apparently it had a real bad effect on her. And so I went to bed that night, and I woke up the next morning to a banging at my door. I open the door, and it's the police. And they come in, they start searching my stuff, and they find all my pills and my razor blades. And so and I was already on probation at that time, and so they gave me a Class B felony with a violation of probation. And so it was just a real life-altering situation. And that is what led me into jail.
How old were you when this?
Well, oh man, dude, I can't even tell you, like, the grace of God on my life was so good, because I already had a history of trouble. Every police officer knew my name. I just would steal, I would rob, I'd break in people's houses, I stole cars. I remember stealing a car from somebody, turning on the ignition, not even knowing how to steer it, and it just went forward and smashed into other cars that were in the park. I mean, I was just bad, bro. And I stood in front of the judge thinking he's going to slap me with, like, the book, because he had every right to just throw the book at me. Harmony, you're doing like 15, 20 years in prison, man. There's no getting out of it. And God turned his heart for whatever reason, and he said, I'm going to give you a year. I'm going to drop your B felony. Who does this? I'm going to drop your B felony to a Class A misdemeanor. I'm going to give you 6 months for it, and then I'm going to take your violation of probation, and I'm going to slap you with 6 months with that, and I'm going to run them concurrent, and I'm going to give you a year and see if this is something that can change who you are, man. And even though it didn't, I went, and as soon as I got into jail, I started like slicing open my wrists and just carving I have so many scars on my arms of just took blood and smeared it on the cells, and I was writing, you know, things in the blood, and I just went crazy, man. It was horrible. They beat the heck out of me. The guards would come in, and they would just, they would empty cans of OC spray on me, and OC spray and pepper spray are different. Pepper spray burns the heck out of your eyeballs. OC spray actually burns your skin. It feels like third-degree burns. It sucks so bad. And they would empty cans, plural, of that OC spray on me through the bars. And then they would come in and they would grab me and they would slam me on the ground. They'd hold me there. They'd put their little combat boots in my neck, and they would just beat the heck out of me. They broke my ribs at one point. And then they would leave me in the cell. It's mandatory, according to, you know, the jail law, that once an inmate is sprayed with OC spray, they're supposed to take you down after they have got the situation under control. It's mandatory they take you down to the medical facility to wash that OC spray off your skin. They did not do that for me. They made me sit in there, and I had to have that on. It burned so bad. I begged them so much to take me to please wash it off, and they laughed at me and they left me in there. It got so bad that I went to try to push the sink water in my cell, and they shut my water off. So the only water I had was the dirty toilet water, and I had to cut my hands in that urine water, and I had to wash it on my face and on my body, my skin, and everything, to do my best to try to wash that stuff off. And I didn't nearly get as much off with that urine water as I needed to, because it burned me that whole night all the way up until the noon of the next day.
It was very cruel what they did to you, but I guess you have to learn to behave.
Man, dude, I needed to learn, and I went through the fire. I mean, my mom got cancer too when I was in there, and so that another just blow to the gut, you know. And they told me, my mom had told me that she had 6 months to a year to live, like it was boom, like, hey, I got cancer and I'm about to die, and I'm like, what? No way. And so 6 months to a year was her time limit to live, and she died in just a couple weeks.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
So at what point, Harmini, did you really wanted to turn your life around and change and give your life to Jesus?
That happened in Albuquerque, New Mexico in 2005. I had a girlfriend, the first actual girlfriend that I had let my gate down to, the gate of my heart to, and I actually began to try to build a relationship with. It didn't end well, but I got my son out of that relationship, and because of the terror that was going on in that relationship and the things that I was dealing with, it brought me to my knees in 2005, and that mixed with all the drugs that I was doing, crack, cocaine, weed, mushrooms, Oxycontin still, cigarettes, meth. There was like eight drugs that I was consuming consistently, and they were just ripping and shredding my mind apart. My brain was like just dying. And so that mixed with the relationship situation, mixed with me about to be a father, and I had no idea how to be a dad. I had so much fear consume me. It was just crazy, man. But it brought me to my knees again. However, this time I genuinely cried out to God. I cried and I begged and I told him that I was sorry. I told him that I didn't want to be that monster anymore. I told him that I was sick and tired of letting my family down and letting him down and letting myself down, and I told him that I was serious this time, because I prayed before, but I just, God kept his promise, but I didn't keep mine. And so it got to a place in that prayer to where I was so serious. I said, do whatever you need to do, whatever it is. I don't care if you cause an animal to come and just eat my throat out so I can't talk, or whatever it is that you need to do. I just want to change, and I want to be the person that I feel I can be if I have the right help. I can't get through this. And there was one thing that I said to God in that prayer that I think really moved him outside of everything else. I told him, God, I said, if I die, I said, after I pray this prayer, if I die and I go to hell, I said, it's going to be your fault this time. I said, it's no longer my fault. I said, it's going to be your fault. I said, because right now I'm very serious. I really want to change. I don't want to be this person. And if you're going to leave me here and you're not going to help me, and I die after this moment and I go to hell, you'll remember that's your fault for the rest of eternity. It's not mine. And I felt God's presence come into the room so thick and so strong, it covered over me like a blanket. It was like a fabric in the atmosphere. Like I could wave my hand and I could feel resistance in the air because of the presence that was manifested in that room. And I just cried, man. I cried because I knew that it was real, and I knew he was really there. And it was very, very overwhelming. And from that moment forth, things began to change for me.
Can you tell me, because a lot of times, when we talk about people that are drug addicts or alcoholics, people don't understand why they get into drugs. Can you tell me why people get into drugs? What is the feeling they get from doing all these different drugs? Why is that you cannot leave them or your body?
Yeah.
Is something psychological? Something that your body is craving for? Tell me a little bit.
I think
what are the effects? What is it?
I think that there's several things that come from that. I mean, for me, it had many things. When I did drugs, I then began to sell drugs, and I began to have friends. As the kid with Tourette growing up, and and just dealing with the stuff I dealt with, I was made fun of, and I didn't really have. I had maybe two to three genuine friends that I hung out with, but the majority of people viewed me as not being cool, not being someone that they would be happy to call, hey, that's my friend right there. And so when I got into drugs, other people, I guess the fear of rejection caused me to dip into the drugs. But when I got into the drugs, I became fearless. So I would steal money from my mom. I would steal money from my grandmother. There was a time when I would go to supermarkets, and I would just push a cart, and I'd go up to elderly people, and I would wait, primarily women, and I would wait for these elderly ladies to stop their cart, because they always kept their purse in their cart. And they would walk over to the shelf slow, because, you're 80, 90 years old, you're not moving, Mach 9. And so they would walk over to the shelf to get their stuff, and I would just literally walk past up to their cart. I would lift their purse out, put it in my cart, and I would walk forward, and I would leave the store. And I did that in a ridiculous amount of times. And so I didn't have fear, and because of that, I gained popularity rather quickly. And I went from, paying the top amount for, an ounce of weed, marijuana, to paying the least. I was getting marijuana so cheap, good marijuana so cheap, that people were like, oh, how are you doing this? And I would just sell so much of it. And I never used the money that I made from the sale of those drugs to buy cars and stuff. I literally spent that money on more marijuana so that I had just an incredible stash that I could smoke. So I ended up getting to a place where I was smoking a quarter pound of marijuana a day, and I would just go around from house to house, place to place, and everybody just, when I walked in the room, everything changed, because they knew I had a lot of marijuana on me. I would carry packs of cigarettes, just giving them out freely to people, and I just became popular like that. But in the midst of that, I definitely got addicted. Mentally, I was addicted.
Yes.
I was addicted to the quote, level of fame that I had in the community because of my affiliation with drugs. And so I think that had a lot to do with it. And I think also I was trying to get away from life, too. I think that I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired as a kid. I was always getting in trouble, always being pointed the finger at. And I was bent on destruction, but I didn't want to be bent on destruction. That was the thing that kept getting me, is I didn't want to be the person that I kept on being, but I didn't know how to change. Every time I thought that I could try to take a step forward, I'd get knocked 2 steps back. And that's just how it went for years. So I ended up 130 steps back from the starting line. So, yeah, I think that the drugs definitely, they are, and they can be physically addicting. Cigarettes are physically addicting. I think marijuana is more of a mental thing. I'm not sure if it has physical implications of addiction, but I know that cigarettes do. I know that you begin to go through withdrawals when you do, obviously, Oxycontin, when you do drugs like meth or crack or cocaine. Those things have physical ramifications when you do not use. And so, you can just imagine me doing all of those drugs, and when I didn't have money to buy all of those drugs, all of the withdrawals from each drug consuming me. It was a tornado of just despair. And yeah, man. My God.
But which one was the drug that was the hardest for you to stop taking and doing?
I always found myself running back to marijuana. Marijuana was the first, and it was the primary one that I always wanted to have with me. The harder drugs, even though they were very difficult to let go of, marijuana, every time I'd get locked up, you can't do drugs when you're locked up. So when I get out, the first thing I'd go to is the marijuana. And then the marijuana would open up the door again to the other things. It was like the gateway drug every single freaking time. It was the gateway drug to other drugs. And so, but nevertheless, it was, those addictions were so strong in me, I just could not break free for nothing. You would think that all of the pain and the suffering and the drama and the hate and the negativity and the family problems it caused and the relationship problems it caused and just the person I was becoming, you would think that I would be like, what am I doing? Heck no, I'm going to stop. But I couldn't. Even though in my heart I wanted to, I had no idea how to, because it was like there was a force inside of me that was stronger than my will and my ability to do the right thing.
But when you were in this relationship, you mentioned earlier that when you were with this person you were dating and you have your child with her.
Yeah.
That's when you asked God to help you to live all this life that you were living.
Yeah.
Does that change become like from day to night, like really fast? Do you leave all these drugs?
Well, it actually happens differently with different people. I have seen people instantaneously be set free and delivered. For me, I didn't have a one-day deliverance. I had a less than 2 months deliverance, which is still major, considering that I was on all of those drugs. After I prayed that prayer and the Lord came into that room and just began to just love on me, and it was like really the first time that I ever felt like I was accepted in my life, to know that the God of the universe is in the room with you, and you know that without a shadow of a doubt. It does something to your soul, the essence of the real you behind this flesh and skin. There was something inside of me that broke, because I knew that the God of the universe cared about me. He actually cared about me.
Yes.
That changed me, man. I can't tell anyone in depth. It just changed me, man. When you come to that realization, something inside of you you see. That's why they say you're blind and now you see. That was when that happened to me, and my eyes were opened, and it caused such a transformation to begin in my life. It was just unbelievable. And so from May 05, which is when I got saved, was when I had that encounter with Christ. By July 05, I was completely set free and delivered from all of those addictions. I was set in my right mind, and I didn't even know what to do with myself.
Yes.
For so many years, I lived this life, and now I'm in my right mind, and I'm not addicted to drugs. What in the world am I going to do with myself?
Yes.
I didn't even know. Like, what am I doing now? I'm like, I don't, and all of the friends that I had, you stop doing the drugs, guess what happens?
You don't have any friends.
You ain't got no more friends, because that is the common factor that you all have in common, and when that thing leaves, the friendship leaves. Birds of a feather flock together, my friend. And so for me, that was the beginning of, it was a massive change in my life, but it was also the start of sorrow for me as well, because I had no friends. I was going through this thing with Christ day by day alone.
Yes.
And I just wanted somebody to see. And so, God sent different people in my life along the way to just encourage me. And then from that time forth, I just began to move. And, I didn't have a job. I didn't know how to work. And I didn't even work at McDonald's. I didn't know how to balance a checkbook. I didn't have a license. I didn't know how to drive a car. I've stole cars, but I didn't know how to drive them. And, all of that. And so it was very, very unique to be in the position I was, because I lived with my brother. My brother is the one who took me out after I came out of the gate from incarceration, because my mom had died, and my mom begged him on her deathbed to please be patient with me and at least try to give me a chance. And he did. And even though I went back to the same things that put me in prison and went through the stuff that I went to, because I went into jail, but then they did put me in prison. They locked me in a maximum security mental prison because of all the things that I was doing there. I was locked up with the craziest of the craziest. The first day I got into that prison, there was a fight, and it was over me. I mean, it was just crazy, bro.
Yes.
So the things that I witnessed and encountered was just, oh man. But when I got out, my brother took me, and I moved out of the city of Elmira, and I went with him because he's a pilot, and he was stationed in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And that's where I went. I went to live with him there, a new state, a fresh new start. It didn't take me long to find the top drug people there, so I made sure that I did that, and I fell back in and destroyed my life over again. But in 2005, I got released in 2003. By 2005, I've driven my life in such a rut so bad that I needed change or I was going to die. And so I genuinely cried to God. He heard me, and he came down. He set me free from those drugs and began to put me on a path that was going to change my life forever. And now I'm here. I'm 32 years old from 22, over a decade later. And you just look, I've gone from a nobody to someone who is on international platforms. I just got back from TBN and had an interview on Trinity Broadcasting Network, on one of the largest Christian networks available to us today. Millions and millions and millions of people. I've been on ABC News. I've been on CBS News. I've been on NBC News. My hometown in Elmira called me and said, "Hey, we want to do a documentary about your life because Elmira, these kids are perishing. They're going nowhere, and they need a light." And they did a 22-minute documentary on my life, went down, took pictures, everything, place where I was molested, where I grew up, where I went to school, and they aired it on their CBS and ABC channels in the Twin Tiers region of upstate New York. And it's just been insane, bro, to see who I was. And you would look at me and think there was no hope. You'd think I was who I am today. You would just never, ever, ever think that I could do it, that I could change. Mm-hmm. But it was that centerpiece, that middle ground when I met Christ, and He is the reason for this transformation, and He is the reason I am and can do what I am and what I'm doing today.
It's a blessing to hear your testimony. It's very powerful because it's really hard to get out of all these drugs, to be an alcoholic, and you went through so much suffering and so much torment all your life since you were a child.
Yeah.
You were a young man, and you even suffered the loss of your mother. I'm sure this affected you really bad when you lost your mother. Were you in jail when she passed away? Or
yeah.
Were you?
Yeah, I was in jail. My brother went to the judge and basically begged him to please let me out to see my mom because she was about to die. And again, the judge's heart was softened, and I was allowed to go see my mom. They came up to my cell and they, turn around, Mr. Monsignor, blah, 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 and they put me in waist chains and shackles, and they led me out of the cell into a van, and they locked me in the back of the van and transported me to the hospital and got me out, waist chains and shackles, walked up to the hospital, had the officers, there, armed and all that craziness, and in the elevator. And when I went up, I finally made it to the room, and when I walked in the hospital room, I was in utter shock because I had never seen my mom look like that. Hair gone, lips blistered and chapped, gasping for breath, on tubes, eyes rolling in the back of her head, but she knew I was in the room. There's one memory that I have that I've never been able to shake that I wish I didn't do because I felt like it was selfish of me in that moment. I remember hovering over her face, crying, and I remember my tears falling down on her cheek in that room. And I never really got to get over that. Because I feel like that it was her moment of death, and I should not have allowed that to happen. I told her that I loved her and I was so sorry, and that she was the greatest mom. She was the champion. Yeah, she was the champion of my life. And so yeah, I had an hour there with her, and I left and I went back. They took me back to my cell. And she died that night. She hung on for me.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry about this. But you know what, Harmini? you know now that you will be seeing your mother again.
Oh yes, she's in
Christian, you know.
Yeah, she's in my. She is definitely in my future.
You know that. And tell me, how did you start your career in singing and acting?
Oh boy.
You ever dreamed to become a singer, an actor?
Oh, I think every kid's dream is to become a singer or an actor or famous in some kind of way. You know, of course, with me growing up, you would bet your money against me in a heartbeat. But Christ changed my life, and he did this for me. This is all him. I didn't do any of it.
Yes.
That's him, man. And so, though I would have loved to be the person doing what I'm doing today, it didn't happen until Christ said, "You're ready." And so, little by little, he didn't just throw me into the entertainment industry. I've been on a very slow-paced, gradual walk, because there are things that I've had to learn along the way that he's wanted me to learn. And you know, I'm glad that I went at a slow pace, because I needed that. As much as I thought I was ready, now that I look back, even though I had such a fire for God, I was not ready. And so, you know, I told God after I got saved, I was like, "You got me here, and I'm not, you know, I don't have these addictions to drugs anymore." I said, "I don't even know what to do with myself." And I told him, I said, "What do I do now?" I was like, "I don't have anything." I was like, "I don't know how to work. I didn't graduate from school. I've never been to college." I was like, "I have nothing to offer you. Literally, I don't even have money to offer you. I'm broke." And so I told him, I said, "The only thing that I really know how to do is to write rap music." And I said, "If you'll use that, I'll give it to you." Yes. And so I took all the swearing out of my rhymes, and I took all of the perversion and you know, all of the ungodly things out of my raps, and I began to write more positive, godly writings. And when I did that, he began to open one door at a time. And I went from, you know, I had an opportunity, and I was placed in a bilingual rap group in 2007, and I was the only member of that group who was not bilingual. I was the only white person in that group, to think of it too. I was the only non-Spanish person, but I was a central figure for that group. And so I sang most of the hooks. You know, I had a very strong delivery in the lyrics that I wrote, and everybody saw that there was something about me that was going somewhere, and they would say that to me. But that was the beginning thing, and we went from performing in front of, you know, 5 little kids, 10 little kids, and in 3 years from that time, I was in arenas performing in over 5,000. And then I just did I had an acting gig last year that I did that was in front of like 12,000, to speak the truth. So.
Because I remember a few years ago I went to one of your videos. We're back. I'm sorry, we have a technical difficulty. We're back. I do apologize for it. We have Harmini here, a very talented Christian singer and actor. Hi, Harmini.
Hello there. We're back again.
Yes.
We had TD, technical difficulties.
Yes. A few years ago, Harmini, I was mentioning you earlier that I went to see one of your videos. It calls the ropes.
Against the ropes.
Against the ropes.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how did you come with the idea to write and produce this video? Because it's very powerful.
Thank you. Yeah, as I was going, it was kind of crazy. The Bible says that when we're faithful with our talents, God multiplies them and gives us more. If we're faithful with little, he'll give us much. And so all I had was the skill of rapping, and I just wrote rhymes down to give to him. And then he multiplied that, and he gave me the ability to act. And then he gave me the ability to do modeling. And then he gave me the gift of film production, to see the most dramatic and incredible things in my brain that I was able to articulate, write down, and then bring into a reality. And so, Against the Ropes was my first music video, and it was based on a true story. And so in this video, a girl who was 6 years old was abandoned by her mother. And she went through a lot of things in life as a young child. She was left on the porch of their home. Her mom said, "I'm going to the store to buy a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread, and I'll be back. You just stay here." And she walked off and never came back. And that was very devastating to that girl. Yeah. And so that girl became a very important part of my life along this journey. Her name is Erica Villanueva, and that's her story. So when people go online, they go to my website or they go to YouTube and they look up Harmini, Harmini, Against the Ropes, you can see how I depicted the scenes of her being 6 years old, the scenes of when she was 12 years old, when she was 16, and then at the end of the video, she actually comes in as an adult and plays her own self. And I told the story from the perspective of your back being against the ropes. You know, life throws you things, and you don't know how to fight life. There's scenes inside of there as these little girls are in the boxing ring, and you see them getting hit in the face and blood flying out and hitting the ground and bruised up and beaten down by life. But the thing that you never see in the ring is what they're fighting. They're fighting life, but the imagery I wanted to paint was they couldn't see their enemy because they didn't know how to identify the enemies in their life. They didn't know how, they had no training. They had no training. So how in the world were they going to be able to fight life? How are they going to fight these things coming against them when they didn't even know how to even see or deal with these situations? And so there's a moment in the music video when that girl, again, she says a prayer, and God heard her prayer. Yes. And he came down as her defense, and he began to give her the strength. So if there's a center point in the video where you see the girl knocked down, and she's blood coming out onto the floor, and she's bruised up, and she's just completely weary and tired of fighting. And then all of a sudden you see her get some strength, just enough to pull herself back up off the floor. And then all of a sudden she begins to have this ability to fight against the enemies of life, to fight against the hardships of life. And you see that there is a training that's going on that's not being given by a human being, it's being given by the Spirit of God. And so she begins to take dominance over that match, and in the end she wins, and she has her hands raised up victorious because she won, because the power of Christ entered her life and gave her the ability to overcome.
And this is something that you lived through it, and God has given you the answer, and he has set you free.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now you can see, like you're telling us, and you're telling to all the audience, that you're working for God.
Yeah.
Your music, your videos, your movies, to reach the people that they don't know how to confront all these problems they've been dragging on for so many years.
Yeah.
And you tell them there is a mighty God that can come to the rescue and get you out from the darkness.
Yeah, and the thing that I love about this, the thing I love most about what I do here is I'm not just saying it, I'm living it.
Yes.
So they hear my words, but people can say things all the time and have nothing to show for it. They can have nothing there that validly backs up what they're saying. But I have that in my life every day, and they can actually look to see who I was. I mean, there has to be a moment in time when a person begins to question the reality of who God really is and what he's really capable of doing. Because you can only deny for so long. It's like, even if people hear my story and they weren't to choose to believe, I have a powerful story, man.
Yes, you do.
You can't just sit down and make this stuff up. So, and I know that when I speak it, it's truth, and I know that truth reveals itself to people. And so therefore, when I'm talking this testimony and people are hearing me, they begin to feel something stir inside of their very soul, and that's God confirming that what I'm telling them is the truth. And it's like water to a dead plant. These people out here who are walking, they're the walking dead, literally. They're spiritually dead. They're walking around the earth like zombies.
Yes.
And inside they're absolutely 100% dead. And so when you hear my testimony and other people's testimonies of what God has done in their life, for their life, and through their life, it's like water hitting a plant that is like completely dried up and about to just fall over and have no hope of resurrection. And they get that water, that one drop, that just makes them just kind of open their eyes a little bit and feel like maybe this could be true. Maybe this could happen for me. And my goal is to always let people know that it can. It absolutely 100% can. And if they need evidence to build a case for themselves, they can put me on the witness stand. They can bring me in and present me to the judge, because I am the evidence that they need to believe.
What would you like to tell to all these young people that are living this kind of life that you live, that there is a hope for them and they can change? What would you like to tell to not just the young people, but even adults that are living this life that would like to change their lives around?
Well, I would say, for the kids that are listening, or any teens or even young adults, I might be 32 years old, but if you were listening, you know that I was once a child. You know that things happened to me as I was a child, and you can relate to a lot of the things I was talking about, especially the part where you feel like you want to do right, but you can't do it. You can't find the strength inside of you to take dominance over the things in your life that are destroying you. So it's like you want to be good, but you don't know how. You want to do the right thing, but you don't know how. And so along the way, you just kind of give up. You just come to terms and you're like, I am who I am. This is who I'm going to continue to be, and apparently I can't change the situation, so I must just give up. And that was my theory. That was how I thought. But the reality is, first thing, you have to be honest with yourself. It's okay if you have a drug addiction. It's okay if you've made mistakes. It's okay if you've been molested. It's okay if you've been raped. It's okay if you've suffered tragedies, or you've had family members or someone you love pass away in your life. It's okay. The thing is not to allow those things to paint your future in a negative manner. You can choose to allow those things to ruin you, or they can be propellers that help launch you into a greater future. And so it's okay if you've suffered in life, because I suffered tremendously, but you don't have to stay there. You can pick up the pieces and move forward, but the first thing, you have to be honest. You have to tell yourself the truth. Don't lie. Don't say I don't have a drug addiction. Don't say I don't have this issue. I'm not a liar. I don't have a stealing problem. Just be honest. That's the first thing, is to be honest. And you know what, if people don't like that you're being honest, you're not being honest for them, you're being honest for you. And so it's important to get past the fear of rejection. That was one of the greatest things that helped me overcome so many things. Was I eliminated. God gave me the ability and the strength to focus on Him and not the opinion of man. Trust me, I've had so many people reject me and say so many horrible things against me and about me along this journey. It would just make you cringe your teeth at some of these people. However, honesty is huge. So the next thing is, for me, Christ delivered me. I didn't deliver myself. If I had my way and back then, I would still be using drugs today, and you wouldn't even be hearing my voice. You wouldn't even know who I am, or wouldn't even be on this broadcast tuning into Joaquin&Harmini. It just would not be happening. So Christ changed my life. So therefore, if Christ changed yours too, but you have to first believe, and then you have to call on the name of the Lord. And it's simple to do that. And this is for young and old, adults and kids. It doesn't matter your gender, it doesn't matter your race, it doesn't matter where you are in life. It doesn't matter if you're listening to this broadcast smoking weed and having sex in the background. It doesn't matter. The key is God isn't worried about your past or what you're doing. He just wants to save you and set you free, to give you a hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans," God knows, I meaning God, "for I know the plans that I have for you, saith the Lord. And those plans are to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you hope and a future." Well, my God, that's just amazing. I mean, who wouldn't want to bite into that and be like, man, that's just amazing. You mean you want to give me a hope and a future? That your goal is not to harm me? But God, I've done this, and God, I've done that, and you begin to rehearse your past to God as if He cares about that. It's really a battle of your mind. If God says you're forgiven, you're forgiven. It doesn't mean you stop sinning. It doesn't mean that you change in one day. I can guarantee you that on the day of my salvation, after that, I still made mistakes. It took me almost a year to clean up my language. I was still cussing and things little, and it got less and less and less. So the thing isn't changing everything about your life in one day. It's sanctification and growing, which means that you set yourself apart. You give God the opportunity to speak into your life. You get into a very good church that teaches and preaches the Word of God, and you allow yourself to be a student of God's Word. If you still struggle smoking weed, don't worry about it. That's for God to handle, not you. If you could have changed it, wouldn't you have already changed it? Wouldn't you have already stopped doing the things that you have wanted to stop doing that have been destroying your life? Of course you would. But you obviously don't have the power to do that, do you? No, you don't. But God does. So if you'll give yourself to God, give God the opportunity to speak into your life and to transform your life, He will change your desires. He will cause you to have the strength you need to overcome. And so you can do that in just a moment. If you're not saved, if you need Christ, you call out to the Lord. You say, Lord God, I'm sorry for my sins. I recognize that I have sinned against you. I recognize that I need a Savior. I fought for too long, and I don't have the power nor the strength to change myself. But I believe you do. And I ask you to please do what you did for Harmony. Come into my life. Come into this room where I'm at. Come into my heart and change me like you changed him. I believe that you are the Son of God. I believe that you came to this earth and you preached the truth of heaven. I believe that you died on the cross at Calvary for my sins, my lies, my drug use, my abuse, my theft. All of my sins, you nailed them to the cross so that I could have the opportunity to be set free. And I believe that God the Father raised you from the dead 3 days after you were murdered on that cross. And by my faith in that, I receive your Holy Spirit into my heart right now. You just tell God, just be real. I was very honest with Christ. Come into my heart, Lord, and change me. I need you. I'm going to be honest with myself. I recognize I can't do it by myself. I need you. Come into my heart and change me. And if I fall down, give me the strength to get back up. Be real with God. You don't think your life isn't open before Him? You think you have hidden things that God can't see? He knows everything about you. Everything. Every thought. Every word that you've ever spoken and every deed you've ever done in front of people or behind closed doors. There is nothing that is hidden from the sight of Almighty God. And you can take hope in that, because that means that God still loves you and cares for you even though you've done things wrong. So you have to be honest with God. I can't change you. I can't force you to do anything. That change has to come between you and a relationship with Christ. And it starts with you trusting and believing in God, asking Him into your life, and then positioning yourself to learn and to grow. And God will do for you what He has done for me. But it starts with you, and it starts with a relationship with God and honesty. And that's my advice.
Thank you, Harmini. When you were saying it is okay, you referred to accept what you have done wrong in your life. When you say it's okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there are things that sometimes you cannot change. Like, for example, in your life, you were molested, you were abused.
I couldn't change that.
So many things you can change, but God changed your life. Now, He make you who you are, a brand new person, and with so much talent that you're preaching the gospel through singing, acting. And it's very powerful testimony. Harmini, would you invite the audience to check your work in your website? If you have YouTube, Twitter,
Sure.
Facebook.
Sure. Yeah, I know some of my followers and people that I have on social media and things are tuned in. So definitely tune in to Joaquin. He's always got some great shows and some great things, going on, great discussions, different topics. And then for my website, for those of you who don't have that information, you can go to www.harmoniproductions.com. That's HARMINI Productions.com, and you can check out everything. You can see all the movies, all the TV commercials, the trailers, the interviews, the music videos. There's just a ton of things on there that you can see. My bio is on there to read more, in depth from of the things that we've been talking about here today. I do have social media. As an artist, every artist will have those platforms. You can either get to them through my website. There's icons at the very top of the homepage of my website that you can click on that will take you directly there, or you can just search at Harmini 731. 731 is my birthday, so I'm about to be 33 at the end of this month, and I feel like I'm 16 still. And so you guys can check out and follow me on there, and I'm always uploading things. I upload everything. Me in the studio, when I'm writing songs, when I'm here, when I'm swimming. You might, everything. You just get on there, you'll always see pictures, always see new videos, fresh stuff, things that you guys can chat with, comment, respond, and just become a part of this amazing journey and movement that I'm on, and I would love to connect with you. And if you have any prayer requests or anything that you just want to talk about, man, I'm not that person who's so high in the sky that I don't take time to talk to people. And so if I don't respond in the same day, don't be discouraged. I will respond. I get so many messages and so many things all the time. It's difficult sometimes to immediately respond to people. However, I do see them and I do respond. And so if you guys want to contact me or get in touch with me, you're more than welcome to. We love you guys. We thank you for being a part of this amazing radio show. And be sure to tune in every week.
Every Thursday.
Every Thursday.
6 p.m.
Every Thursday, 6 p.m.
So, Billy, would you like to say a few words before we leave?
Yeah, I think your life is an amazing testimony to a lot of people. I'm sure there's probably a lot of people that could greatly benefit from all the things that's happening, can change their life too. You know, I think it's really important that you
continue.
Amen. Thank you, Harmini, for coming here to our show this day. It's always a blessing to see you and have you in our shows.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me.
And I will invite you next time so we can talk about your interviews in CNN. You know, I would like to see how people react, what people say to you, or what kind of response you have.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the TBN interview will be released in August next month. I went out to California and filmed that. The NBC and all of those are already available online. And I had another television interview just a couple weeks ago that is in editing right now that'll be released as well on the Time with Teresa television show. And yeah, it just keeps going. It just keeps going, man.
Well, thank you, Harmini, for being here on the show. It's always a blessing to see you and listen to your testimony. And thank you to our audience for tuning our radio show. You're live with Joaquin and Billy. See you next week. God bless you. We love you. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.